Good afternoon, sir. This is Akshay. A brief introduction is in order. I serve as the Digital Marketing Manager for Xpedize Ventures Private Limited. And before I begin, I would like to introduce you to the audience. Mr. Chitale here is a mentor, is an investor, a serial entrepreneur, a business leader, and so much more. He's been here, who's been mentoring us, who's been guiding us through our journey as an invoice discounting platform, and he's been guiding us as an organization that has been growing at an exceptionally fast pace. So, a brief introduction from your end, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Akshay. Good to see you. First of all,
Good to see you too, sir.
I'm glad with the journey that you guys have embarked. I think we are on the right track, and I think digital transformation has shaken the world completely, and especially the pandemic effect has really caused the acceleration beyond anybody's imagination. So I can understand the pressure of pace as such. And so I'm glad that we are doing this in a sense. I've been talking to your team as well, the leaders. But this is a brilliant opportunity for anyone who wants to make a mark in the industry, because everything is going to be black and white on the scorecard.
Yes, sir. So our first question, if I may start with your permission, is with the onset of the pandemic, the world as we know it changed completely back in March 2020, especially in India. So, but as they say, every cloud has a silver lining. So, in your opinion, how has digital transformation of the society in general and Indian businesses in particular transpired through this journey, and how so have these impacted the logistics and supply chain domains in India and beyond?
Yeah, very interesting and apt question, I must say that. As I was saying, that the pandemic has really accelerated the speed of transformation. A lot of companies have invested a big amount of time, resources, money initially to think about roadmap on the digital transformation. But pandemic has really pushed them to say that it's not tomorrow, you need to do it yesterday, if not today. It has got variety of implications on the elements of supply chain because of the restrictions of the goods movement. While the consumers had to be fed, but the supply chains were not ready to embark the new journey per se initially. A lot of big techies took the advantage of replacing current supply chains with more digitized way of doing order to cash cycles. But that doesn't mean the brick and mortar guys are going to die. Even they are evolving as we see in the market today. A simple example of where things are heading is the digital money transactions. If we look at the volumes, India is way beyond China now in terms of transaction volumes that we are doing the payments in the digital way. Yes. The money is exchanged hands digitally. Principles are the same. I think you need to look at customer experience, operating models, as well as you need to look at what is the operational efficiencies that you are trying to do with digital transformation. So yes, it's a very exciting way to look at things, and India initially did struggle in terms of reaching the consumers in the right time. But as I said, a lot of tech companies took the advantage of the situation to grow their volumes and attract more investment into their foray.
Yes, sir. As they say, whenever something that big of a magnitude that takes place, like a pandemic, the world changes as we know it. So I think that has happened for good as well, as apart from being the worst that the country has seen. But we've seen a lot of these changes that have actually transpired, that has transformed society and businesses in general. So, for example, pushing India into a digital era is something that I believe the pandemic has accelerated. So, do you think that is the case, sir?
True, absolutely. Yes, look at the way the simple around the corner shops are collecting payments. I think they were only doing cash kind of a business, but now you will see a GPay or a PhonePe or a Paytm QR code with every Tom, Dick and Harry, I should say. So this is a simple example that if you don't change, you will die a natural death. That's the way I look at it. If you don't change the business models in line with the demands of the consumer experience or customer experience or needs, then there is no other way. Yes, and there are so many examples of failures. The rigidity of the organizations didn't adopt digital way, and they died.
Yes, sir, and we live in a dynamic world after all, when it comes to businesses especially.
True.
Yes, sir. So now my second question, sir, is as we go through this pandemic, we have observed that supply chains across the country and beyond, in one way or the other, they have fought back. So if it's any sort of a disruption, we've seen the supply chains resort to technologies, to new age technologies that essentially help them get over that. How do you see Indian supply chains evolving from this unprecedented disruption that we know as COVID-19?
Supply chain is the heart of whatever manufacturing companies do. When I talk about manufacturing, it's across the spectrums, not only consumer goods, it's a pharmaceutical, whether it's you can say raw material for textile industry, so on and so forth. So the entire gamut of business model change has happened overnight. What it means is that the way you conduct your business has taken a new shape. And if the organizations don't keep the pace of that change and don't adopt to the new ways of doing business, again, I said that you will die a natural death. And time is so precious today because the pandemic, you can hide behind pandemic for a few quarters of poor financial performance, but then if you really don't honor the commitment that you're given to the stakeholders, they'll pull the money out and then you're dead.
Yeah.
So the supply chains in India have done a phenomenal job. What I mean by that is one is a feeding common man on the ground. When the government announces big schemes of providing basic ingredients to the poor family till the pandemic is continuing, what stands behind is the supply chain. And it's a new supply chain that they've come up with. So if when you look at the impact on the supply chain and the adoption of supply chain to the new way of doing business is visible. So I always used to say that when digital transformation happens, non-value adding players in the link or the supply chain links will be wiped off. As you see, there's so much of halla gulla going on the farmer side, APMC. What it means that they are going from farm to consumer. So the middlemen who are not adding any value, only taking the cream, will get wiped off. And with the digital transformation, that is possible. And that model change is what India is seeing today. And that's why there's so much of resistance from the non-value adding players. But I mean, as you know, when the pandemic or something like tsunami comes in, it has its own way of settling the score. Same thing is going to happen in the digital transformation because of the pandemic. Supply chain will change. You will have no distributors needed when the manufacturing plant can go directly to the retailer or the consumer. I can place direct order online using some app on the producer. He may have to adjust the supply chain to reach that product to me. But that's the beauty of any transformation. So I'm glad that the larger companies who were laggers in terms of transformation are forced to take those steps. And they are bringing a lot of professional ways of handling the entire show. Yeah?
Yes, sir. So talking about members of the supply chain, sir, in my opinion, I believe the Indian MSMEs by far are the most important members of the supply chain that we call in India. And they are touted to be the growth engines of the Indian economy that are to lead India's journey into the $5 trillion economy club. But with structural, infrastructural, and financial speed breakers, how can technology enable these growth engines to pick up the pace once again? And how can Indian MSMEs, sir, if I may ask, embrace the so-called digital disruption?
Very good question. I mean, for me, MSMEs are going to be the heart of Indian 5 trillion dream. And it's not a dream. I mean, if you look at what's happening globally and how much India is going to garner or take away manufacturing into India, into make in India, vocal for local. These are not buzzwords. On the ground, there are a lot of things happening. Unlike previous journey of 70 years, I see a big change. But what it means to MSMEs is that they need to really embrace this change. Because typical MSME is family-owned businesses. So when a small business becomes mid-size and to the large enterprise, if you still continue holding the entire decision-making process as a one-man army or one-woman army, as a family-owned business, and don't look at professionally, you will our challenge. So the digital transformation for MSME is so important, but it's a tough nut to crack. Luckily for us, the pandemic happened, and the pandemic has forced everybody to rethink their business models. With the business model change, what people don't focus is on the people model, because the kind of employees that you have may not be needed for tomorrow's business model. You might need some upskilling,
Yes, sir.
reskilling. So, very interesting phase of transformation for India as a country. As you rightly said, MSMEs will play a very vital role if we are real to become 5 trillion and more. Because just in time was taught by Japanese and Indian term, for that.
Not really sure, sir. Sorry.
It's called shit, somehow in time.
Okay, sir.
So somehow in time has to really give way to better managed businesses,
Yes,
because
sir.
MSMEs will not be able to sustain the funding support that government may give for some time.
Yes, sir.
After that, you need to show your financial performance, and that's where there's a big opportunity for a platform like ours. What we are trying to service the market, because finance is at the heart, and the extra fat you carry on your books will wipe you off.
Yes, sir. Makes absolutely. So recently we've seen Indian companies grow and become some of the biggest, most professional, most dominating organizations of the world, observing rapid growth and expansion as they fill need gaps unequivocally. We've seen companies like Freshworks, Zoho, HighRadius, WhatFix grow at breakneck speeds. So, is it time for Indian companies to truly become global? If so, how do you see them going? How do you see them transforming into global companies that actually dominate the entire world and not just India?
Yeah, it's a good vision to have. But I feel whatever I learned, whatever I've seen, I think most of the companies that you named are only busy creating valuation for their company so that they can attract investors. They are lucky to be in the place in which they are, but if they don't focus on the professional way of looking at things, one day the bubble is going to burst.
That's it.
You cannot say that I will have my own kitchen when your original idea was to support the restaurants around the corner, feed the consumers. A simple example. You cannot become global with that thought process
Yes.
if you shift from your core principles on which you build an organization. So it's a great opportunity for Indian companies to become global, but just learn from what global companies do. They're very professional, they're very structured, they're very transparent, and they're very high speed, performance oriented companies. With our kind of a setup and the mentality that you see on the ground, it still becomes owner's baby, a founder's baby. Right? So that is where I see a bottleneck. So
Yeah,
there's
sir.
nothing wrong in having an ambition to serve global audience. But then we need to be global company mindset. We
Yes,
are
sir.
not.
Right, sir.
That's my personal view.
No, that's absolutely fine, sir. So, a counter question to that, sir. So, what would you suggest to these companies to how do they achieve that status to become a global dominating player?
Very simple. Look at who are your consumers. At the end of the day, anybody in this market will survive if you are listening to what customers want. When I was learning supply chain elements of whatever I was trying to gather, we always used to say, I need to know customer's customer and supplier's supplier side. That means my horizon should not be restricted to my customer or my supplier. I should know what is happening to his supplier, what is happening to my customer's customer. If you don't get that visibility of your business, you're not listening to your consumers or customers. So first of all, focus on customers. Don't take pride on building high-tech technology, app stack or a platform or a cloud or jazzy performances. If it is not serving the consumers that are supposed to be served in the right way, And if you're not doing social listening, you're not applying AIs, MLCs, there will be somebody else who can now come and say, okay, these are the Indian companies I'm going to buy, and still we'll still live in the dream of Indian global organizations. There are very few, and I have great respect for those houses who started as a family business but now are a global players.
Yes, sir.
And hats off to them. They think big, but they don't only think big, they practice big things professionally. That's a shift.
Yes, sir. Right. So, what, in your opinion, has been the on-ground impact that supply chain finance organizations like Xpedize have been over the years able to make, like with respect to Indian MSMEs and their liquidity, working capital management, and overall financial health? So, what is the on-ground impact that organizations like Xpedize have been able to make?
It's a double-edged sword that I see.
Yes, sir.
Because the supply chain business models are changing, and the way finance is moving from consumer to the manufacturer is making a big change. So we need to be watchful about the scenarios that are emerging of liquidity related aspect of it. It will take some time to settle down the new business model in the digital way. The reason I'm saying is today there is very much possible that I can buy something online from manufacturers like Amul or Patanjali or any big thing online. I mean, I'm paying directly to the manufacturer. What will happen to the finances required by the supply chain elements? Because they will become just a logistics company who doesn't need measure of funding. So the question that we need to really go deep dive in terms of our ambition to ask ourselves, who is our real customer or a merchant or a supplier that we are trying to address this problem of liquidity. If we still think the old model is going to continue, I think we'll be on the wrong foot.
Yeah.
So we should be smart to tell people that this is a company who is thinking forward. We understand the money flow, how it's going to change, and we are ready for it. What we always say is your organization should be future-proof.
Yes, sir.
And so, but then you need a visionary leaders, which luckily, when I look at our team, we're a pretty brilliant and sharp team.
Yes, sir.
So you need to have people who can see something coming in the market. We need to be alert on that, and which we are. I'm very happy for that.
Yes, sir. So, as you mentioned, sir, there are basically three things that we have to keep in mind being a growing organization. If I'm wrong, please do correct me. That is essentially be dynamic, grow as per the market, listen to your customers, and just be future proof. So, apart from these, what else do you have as an advice for Xpedize?
No, I think, see, technology will play an important role.
Yes, sir.
And which is given. The temptations of getting entangled into technology is so high because most of the startups are trying to create a technology marvel.
Yes, sir.
The wow factor can continue for a few months attracting investors, but when the investors come in, they need results. So while you should have a sexy, sorry for the word, tech stack, but if your core principles of business are missed out, you will have a problem.
Essentially, the value that we
don't give too much of importance on the technology. Technology is just an enabling factor, and today in the world, it can be drag and drop. I don't need a huge team building a big platform. Not required.
Yes, sir.
If I'm a sharp businessman, I can always go on the cloud and find somebody who can do that job.
Right, sir. So essentially, it's the value that we add for our clients at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, don't focus on creating valuation for your enterprise. Think of adding value to the customers.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And coming back to the work-life balance aspect of it, and I think we've covered the work part of it. What, sir, do you have to say about people like me who've just joined, who've just started out their professional careers in the second or third year? What would you like to say to them when it comes to the work-life balance part of our lives?
Very good question. I think it's linked to the passion that I recently started engaging with many enterprising, inspiring leaders. I have a thought which says that there are leaders and there are inspiring leaders. and I always try to look out for what is it that special inspiration these people bring and where they bring it from. Because you need to have a leader who is really inspiring larger teams, bringing them aligned to common objective, but not going work, but also giving them a space to evolve as an individual. So for you, you are probably this is a very exciting time, but at the same time, it's a very fast, you can say, expectation times, and that's where the challenges are going to come. With the fast speed, the risk of failures are much higher, but your ability to absorb ups and downs is something that you need to focus on. And what it means is that you must have some passion outside work, learning something new, keeping your mind calm because of the usage of excessive technology, screen time. Our thought process are not becoming structured. We want everything fast, ready. To calm things down, you need to have some ways of relaxation.
Right, sir.
And that's what I figured out from a variety of people that I've been talking. Each one of them have a unique passion to do something different. Somebody is trying to go cycling from 5 kilometers to 25 kilometers. Somebody wants to go high mountain treks to get a sense of achievement outside office. And what it means is that they bring that energy back into the work, where their market is tough, customer demands are very high, and you need to match that speed.
Yes, sir. So I am done with my questions, sir. Thank you so much for your time. It has been a pleasure. I wish we could talk more, but I think I'm out of questions now. I think all my answers have been questions have been answered. So I will say thank you so much. Really appreciate it, sir.
No worries. It was a pleasure talking to you. Let's keep moving in the right direction and create more value to our customers. Yeah.
With your guidance, sir, absolutely. That is the plan.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much, sir. Bye-bye.